headlines. As angry protesters take to the streets across the U.S., police officer Darren Wilson breaks his silence for the first time since the shooting death of black teen Michael Brown. Wilson says he's sorry for what happened, but that his conscience is clear. Two of Korea's top conglomerates strike a $1.7 billion deal. Samsung Group sells controlling stakes in 4 of its affiliates to Hanwha Group, marking the first such sale by Samsung in nearly 2 decades. Korea finalizes plans to send its first medical team to Ebola-hit Sierra Leone. 4 doctors and 6 nurses will join the global fight against the deadly outbreak late next month. Hello and welcome to ARIRANG News, coming to you live from Seoul. I'm Hwang Sung-hee. We begin this evening with a mega deal reached between 2 of Korea's biggest conglomerates. Samsung Group is selling its stakes in 4 of its affiliates to another conglomerate, Hanwha Group. Now, it's being seen as part of Samsung's efforts to restructure the group, with Chairman Lee Kun-hee still in the hospital. Ji-yoon explains.
2 of Korea's biggest conglomerates have agreed on a $1.7 billion deal. On Wednesday, Samsung Group said it will sell its controlling stakes in 4 of its affiliates to Hanwha Group. Considering Samsung hasn't sold off an entire business to a domestic rival for nearly 2 decades, the news is a big deal to many. Samsung is selling its defense businesses, Samsung Techwin and Samsung Thales, along with its chemical units, Samsung General Chemicals and Samsung Total Petrochemicals, to Hanwha. However, it is keeping Samsung Fine Chemicals and Samsung BP Chemicals. These are the ones that make materials for rechargeable batteries and liquid crystal display. With this deal, Samsung Group is looking to pull out from its defense and chemical businesses. Instead, it's going to focus more on its core businesses to bring in more profits. They include electronics, financial services, engineering, and construction. Experts say Samsung is taking aggressive steps toward restructuring, doing away with affiliates that don't improve the group's competitiveness. They add the company also seems to be getting ready to transfer the group's ownership to the next generation of the family, considering its head Lee Kun-hee remains in hospital after suffering a heart attack in May. With the purchase, Hanwha Group will jump up the ladder to become Korea's 9th largest conglomerate. Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
More grim readings for the Korean economy. Foreign investment banks have lowered the country's growth forecast for next year. Bloomberg says 34 major foreign institutions, including Moody's and HSBC, cut Korea's growth outlook for 2015, putting the market median at 3.6%. That's nearly half a percentage point lower than the Korean government's goal of 4%. Investment bankers cite slumping domestic demand, coupled with unfavorable external factors, as the reasons for the relatively low forecasts. They expect Japan's monetary easing to weigh heavily on Korean exports next year. Korea's consumer sentiment dropped to its lowest point in more than a year this month, despite government efforts to prop up the ailing economy. Sluggish economic conditions at home and abroad were to blame. Hwang Jie has the details.
The Korean government is trying to boost economic sentiment through a set of aggressive stimulus measures, but those efforts are not bearing fruit, not yet, at least. The Bank of Korea says the country's consumer sentiment index came in at 103 this month, down 2 points from a month earlier. The figure is even lower than the level recorded just after the Sewol-ho ferry sinking in April, a tragedy that seriously dented private consumption. The central bank says the drop in this month's index largely stems from sluggish domestic demand and worsening global economic conditions like the weakening Japanese yen and the U.S. Federal Reserve cutting back its stimulus measures. Experts add that the lowered growth forecast of major institutions also dragged down sentiment.
Korea's central bank, considered one of the most credible institutions, has cut its growth forecast for the domestic economy for next year. And although the government hasn't given out its new official outlook, there are expectations that it's also going to trim its projection.
Despite the drop, a reading above 100 indicates that optimists still outnumber pessimists. The monthly index reflects the overall economic outlook of consumers, their living conditions, and future spending plans. To push up consumer sentiment in the long term, experts say raising the country's income level is critical, adding that the government's expansionary policies are only a short-term solution. Hwang Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
Latest data shows the nation's poverty gap keeps on widening, meaning the poor are becoming poorer. Government policies are making little progress in narrowing the gap, especially when compared to its OECD counterparts. Hanwha reports.
The gap between the haves and have-nots in Korea is widening, while government efforts are not efficiently improving income distributions. Korea's poverty gap last year was 36.4%, up nearly 1 percentage point from 2012 and nearly 2 percentage points from the year before. Statistics Korea says households that earn less than half of the country's median household income accounted for 18.9% of all households last year. But the government's tax, welfare, and other policies managed to reduce the number of households falling below the poverty line by 2.5 percentage points. The effect of the government policies, however, was disappointing when compared with progresses made in other OECD nations. In 2011 alone, taxation and other government steps made an improvement of nearly 32 percentage points in Ireland, where less than 10% of households fell below poverty line. Government measures in France, Finland, and Germany all made improvements of more than 20 percentage points. The improvement in Korea for that year was just 2.1 percentage points. Experts say Korea's income redistribution policies produced poorest effects among OECD nations.
It's crucial to collect higher taxes for higher income people and distribute the money to the poor. That must be strengthened in Korea.
The analyst added that the nation has to come up with better incentives and other supporting measures to help bolster spending powers of households in the low-income bracket. Hanwha, ARIRANG News.
Korean companies looking to cut costs on labor and get tax benefits overseas are looking to Vietnam. Citing government data, Vietnamese media outlets are reporting that foreign direct investment comes to more than $17 billion so far this year, and that Korean firms account for 40% of that amount, or nearly $7 billion. Now, that is the highest among the 60 foreign countries that invested in Vietnam, followed by Singapore and Japan. The reports attribute the influx of Korean investments to corporate tax benefits provided by the local and central governments, as well as cheaper labor compared to its main rival, China. The Korean government will send its first medical team to Ebola-hit Sierra Leone next month. The focus now is on finalizing the details on what to do if one of them should contract the deadly virus during their mission. Ji-yoon reports.
Korea has finalized the details of a medical support team that will be sent to Ebola-hit Sierra Leone next month. Seoul's foreign ministry says it will deploy a group of 10 that includes 4 doctors and 6 nurses. They're scheduled to depart on December 13th and first head to a British Ebola treatment facility near London for training. Their medical work in Sierra Leone will start on December 29th, and it's expected that they'll stay there for 3 months.
We selected Sierra Leone due to their high number of Ebola patients. The virus is spreading at a fast pace, faster than in Liberia. And the recovery rate of those infected is also high in Sierra Leone. So we thought our help would be most effective there.
The ministry is also preparing for worst-case scenarios. In the event a team member contracts the Ebola virus, the ministry is considering transporting the victim on a U.S.-run private airliner to a facility in Europe for treatment. They would not be sent to Korea due to concerns that the long flight could worsen their condition. Once their mission in Sierra Leone is complete, all team members will be quarantined in Korea for 21 days to make sure they're Ebola-free. The ministry says it's considering sending 3 separate teams to West Africa next year, each composed of 10 people for similar efforts. Korea dispatched a team to Sierra Leone earlier this month to conduct site inspections of medical facilities there. Kim Ji-yoon, ARIRANG News.
President Park Geun-hye says having a healthy body and mind is essential in enhancing national power. Marking her monthly Culture Day, the president visited the Olympic Park in eastern Seoul, where she joined officials and citizens in a demonstration of a gymnastics routine made for modern-day Koreans. She also played ping pong with the public. Referring to Korea's increasing life expectancy, President Park said leading an active and healthy post-retirement lifestyle has become ever more important. She added by exercising more, Koreans would be able to save medical expenses and ultimately help with state finances. Technology doesn't just make our life more convenient, it can mean life-altering changes for those living with disabilities. Our Son Jang-in shows us one of the latest examples.
Shin Hyung-jin has suffered from a rare disease since birth that has weakened his muscles and leaves him unable to move. The graduate student in computer science at Yonsei University in Seoul relies mainly on his sight to interact with the world. Now, thanks to a new eye mouse developed by Samsung Electronics, Shin can now interact more easily with his computer. This is a second-generation eye-tracking mouse dubbed the iCan Plus that comes with better calibration sensitivity and an overall improvement in user experience. Users can move the mouse cursor on the screen with their eyes and click by blinking or staring at a specific link for a moment.
We developed this device in hopes that people with disabilities can easily communicate with the world.
Samsung says it plans to donate units of the new eye mouse to charities and will open and share related technologies to promote further development of the sector. Son Jang-in, ARIRANG News.
Korea's largest annual design fair got started this Wednesday. Our Park Ji-won shows us some of the most innovative and creative design collections with a focus on improving people's lives.
Korea's largest annual design fair features a diverse range of innovative and creative items. For example, all of this modern light equipment is made from 3D printers. And how about this cute ribbon-shaped wine stopper? There are also furniture pieces designed specifically for small studio apartments or one-person homes. And then there's this interior LED light.
The shape is inspired by traditional white Korean porcelain pieces, yet its distinctive characteristic is that it's made of a silicone material, which makes for warmer and softer lighting.
The design fair not only showcases fresh ideas by up-and-coming designers, it also puts so-called social designs into the spotlight that aim to change society for the better through smart designs. For instance, these products were designed by children facing physical or psychological challenges. All the profits will be spent on their art education. And these pretty flower patterns apply to products like smartphone covers, mugs, and t-shirts, come from paintings made by victims of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement during art therapy sessions.
I thought their paintings could be used for design pieces. Our goal is to have people view and respect them as artists, not merely as victims.
There are social issues that fit into the theme of this year's festival: well-aged life, well-balanced design.
This year's design festival attempts to see whether designers can provide solutions for creating a healthier society.
The 13th annual design fair is expected to draw tens of thousands of visitors during its 5-day run that ends Sunday. Park Ji-won, ARIRANG News.
Now, here's a piece of information not everyone is aware of. Korean is apparently the 13th most spoken language in the world, ahead of even French, and interest in learning the language is growing. Shin Se-min has the story.
He wasn't driven by K-pop. Ethiopian student Bizayo Bekata came to Korea to study medicine, inspired by Korean doctors who are treating the sick back in his home country. But before he could even begin his desired field of study, Bekata first had to learn the language it was being taught in.
아직까지 어려운 건 쓰기예요. 예, 한국 쓰기. 계속 뭐 예를 들면 어떤 지났으면 못 따라듣는 거 있으면은 다시 플레이하고 그런 식으로 했어요.
More than 86,000 foreigners were receiving paychecks in Korea as of last year. To attract more, the government has rolled out a plan to issue more work visas.
중요하죠. 지금 터키에서 예전에는 한국어에 대한 인식이 높지는 않았는데 요즘 한류 덕분이기도 하고 한국 기업들 때문이기도 한데 이렇게 한국과 졸업생들은 대부분 다 취직이 되고요. 이스탄불이나 큰 도시에 터키 큰 도시에 있는 한국 기업들의 취직이 되고.
The Cyber University of Korea is facilitating efforts by offering free online language courses in 5 languages. The founder of the program says he plans to personalize teaching materials for foreigners working in different fields.
With the lessons that are provided, foreigners will have no trouble handling casual, everyday conversations. But I think providing them with the skills to understand language specific to their field will help bring more foreign workers to Korea.
Language is no longer just a form of communication, but also a medium that opens doors to a country's culture. The learning and teaching of the Korean language could also soon become the driving force behind the growth of the Korean economy. Shin Se-min, ARIRANG News.
Widespread protests have erupted in cities across the U.S. for a second day following the decision by a grand jury not to prosecute a white police officer for killing an unarmed black teenager. With more, we turn to Paul Lee at the News Center. Paul, there has been several key developments in the wake of Monday's announcement by the St. Louis prosecutor. Let's start with the protests. What's the latest on that front?
Well, crowds of demonstrators have returned to the streets of the American town of Ferguson, which has been left scarred in the wake of mass rioting. More than 12 commercial buildings have been burned to the ground, while another dozen cars were torched on Monday night. An additional 2,200 National Guard troops have since been deployed to the area to assist police. Speaking in Chicago on Tuesday, President Barack Obama strongly condemned the violence and said there was no excuse for the criminal acts. Instead, he appealed to the American public to engage in a constructive debate about racial tensions and law enforcement.
I have no sympathy at all for destroying your own communities, but for the overwhelming majority of people who just feel frustrated and pained because they get a sense that maybe some communities aren't treated fairly or some individuals aren't seen as worthy as others. I understand that. And I want to work with you, and I want to move forward with you.
And as I look back Meanwhile, the police officer in question, Darren Wilson, broke his long public silence in a televised interview on ABC News on Tuesday. During the interview, Wilson defended himself, saying he feared for his life and that he could not have done anything differently.
And that's when he turned and said, I had reached out my window of my right hand to grab onto his forearm, because I was going to try and move him back and get out of the car to where I'm no longer trapped. And when I felt it, I just felt the immense power that he had. I mean, the way I've described it is, it was like a 5-year-old holding on to Hulk Hogan. That's just how big this man was.
The lawyer representing the family of Michael Brown has criticized the grand jury's decision not to indict Wilson on criminal charges for killing their 18-year-old son in August. They claim that the process was rigged from the start against minorities. But they also called on the public to refrain from violence and to protest in a peaceful manner.
And turning to Hong Kong, police have again clashed with pro-democracy protesters as the city government pushes to clear out the main demonstration site. Paul, give us the details.
Well, a major standoff began early Wednesday in the Mong Kok district, which has been the flashpoint of several violent confrontations since September. Several thousand police officers have been deployed to the scene as they dismantled the protest camps. Local media reports that student protest leaders Joshua Wong and Lester Shum were detained in the process. They, along with dozens of others, were taken into custody on charges ranging from contempt of court and obstruction of public officers.
We are hoping the authorities can explain the situation. Today, for no reason, a crowd wearing red caps who appear to be pro-Beijing protesters are here to clear the site. What gives them the power to clear the site? How can you prove that they are the workers who have the authority to do this?
Many demonstrators still say they remain defiant in their fight for fully free elections in Hong Kong's 2017 chief executive polls. This follows violent clashes Tuesday night, which ended with police detaining more than 100 people, the highest total in a single day since the movement started over 2 months ago.
And staying in China, a deadly fire at a coal mine in the northeast of the country has left more than 70 people dead or injured. Paul, what's the extent of the damage?
Well, according to Xinhua News Agency, the underground fire spread through the mine in Langnong province early Wednesday. The state-owned company, which operates and employs more than 4,600 people at the site, has reportedly shut down the mine for safety checks. Fusheng Coal said the rescue operations have ended and that 52 injured workers have been hospitalized. The latest death toll showed that at least 24 miners were also killed. Mine operations in China are considered the most dangerous in the world. The National Coal Administration reported over 1,000 deaths across some 600 coal mining accidents in 2013.
And finally, heading back to the U.S., Black Friday is just around the corner and major retailers are bracing for the onslaught of shoppers. But a new survey shows many of them are taking a pass this year.
That's right. A new holiday survey by Deloitte Consulting Services claims nearly 70% of Americans' consumers are not motivated to go out to stores on Thanksgiving Day. They say they'd rather spend their time this weekend with family and friends. Only 48% said they plan to visit stores on this Black Friday. That's down 5% on year. The majority of respondents said they believe the annual deals aren't as good as they used to be and that it wasn't worth beating the mad rush of bargain hunters.
No, I think this year consumers are very optimistic, at least to spend on the holidays, and particularly there's a lot of things moving in their favor. I think that gas prices is certainly helping. Retailers are being very promotional this year and spreading it out, and I think consumers generally have a very positive outlook.
Meanwhile, retail analysts are expecting an economic boom to come out from this year's inevitable shopping spree. The latest forecast by Fitch Ratings predicts U.S. retail sales growth will peak between 3% and 4% through the end of December, up from 2.8% last year. Sung-hee?
All right, Paul, thanks for those updates. We'll see you back in just about 2 hours.
Hello everyone, I'm Kim Bo-kyung with your weather forecast. So it was a warm autumn day here in Korea, perfect for outdoor activities. And at the moment, we are under absolutely clear skies nationwide due to a high pressure front from China. Some good news that this moderate autumn weather will continue under bright and warm conditions tomorrow, but it looks like rain clouds may move in towards the evening. This will lead to nationwide showers on Friday, and that will begin along the western coast in the morning before spreading nationwide by the afternoon. Now, there should be a brief clear up on Saturday before another round of showers drop on Sunday. On to tomorrow's readings. Seoul makes it to 15, Daegu 17, Gwangju 16, Busan hits 18. On to other regions. Jeju peaks at 17, Dokdo and Mount Kumgang reach 14. Those are the updates I have for you now. Stay warm, and here's a look at the international weather.
That will do it for this edition of ARIRANG News. Thanks for watching.